Welcome everyone. My name is Kevin Williams. I work in the Rick Steves Travel Center. We focus mostly on helping the independent travelers going to Europe. But one thing that has become a big question for us is, what do I do about my phone or my tablet? So today we're going to really look at that closely. And I was lucky enough to be at the right age when sort of the technology and travel were really merging together. I remember from my very first iPod Touch, which is basically the iPhone without the phone, noticing how well it could help me get around, and I've seen the technology just kind of evolve with it. So today, what I would like you to keep in mind is if it's a first-time trip, you should really take a look at the Europe Through the Back Door book. This is Rick's Travel Skills Guidebook, and it's going to have a lot of information of what we cover today, along with types of transportation, information about getting your money, everything you really need to know before you go. Read it, leave it behind. And if you're doing your first general Europe trip, trying to hit some of the highlights, that's where the Best of Europe guidebook could be a good fit for you also. Today, this is the meat of what we're going to talk about. We're going to look at cost-effective options to stay connected and communicate with friends back home or people while you're traveling. We're going to make sure you understand how your settings should be put together to make sure you don't get any crazy charges. And we're going to talk about some apps that really make your life while you travel easier rather than make it harder or you're too focused on it. And then the last thing we'll talk about is a little bit of the ebooks, pros and cons that come with them. You might want to be prepared to have some sort of cell phone with you, because payphones are harder and harder to find nowadays, much like here. And internet cafes are definitely becoming a thing of the past. So your hotel may have a computer in the lobby that you can use, but because most travelers are now using their own tablet or smartphone, there's a good chance you're going to be wanting to use that too. This is what I travel with. I do take an iPad, I do take a smartphone, and then of course the cables to make sure everything can charge or connect with other electronics. I like to keep everything together in one sort of bag, so if you have anything already, it's a good fit. I do use Apple products, not because I think Apple is superior in any way or form. It's just what I started with that iPod Touch, and I don't want to buy the apps again. So today's class will focus on Apple products and Android products. If you have a Windows phone, nothing specific, but I do know their settings are very close to Android usually. How many people do remember hearing of people on cruise ships or traveling coming home to thousands of dollars on their phone bill? Then it got downgraded to hundreds of dollars on their phone bill. And at this point, phone companies don't really want to charge that because it's bad publicity for them. People don't like having surprises like that. They complain, they get vocal, media catches on to it. So for the most part, the companies have gotten better with their international plans. But this will let you know sort of the best option for you, how to have it set up, what kind of device you might need. There's sort of a mixture of it. Purchase a data plan with your local provider and roam while traveling. Some are better than others. A lot of you may have heard of the SIM card and an unlocked phone. That was very popular for a while, but I don't think it fits every traveler anymore. It'll be more for people who need to make a lot of calls within the country you're traveling or within Europe. And Wi-Fi is going to be your best friend. It should be free, if not cheap, but free more than likely. And you'll be able to find it almost everywhere. So Wi-Fi will probably be a great friend for you. And then a combo of all of these can be a good fit for you too. And what I mean by that is Wi-Fi is probably the one you'll use most. But then after that, if you do have friends or family in Europe that you need to call a lot, you could maybe have a SIM card ready in an unlocked phone for easy use. Or you could get an international plan from your current provider for backup, for emergency situations, and use it sparingly. Don't panic too much yet. There's going to be more information coming. Two terms I want to make sure you know the difference of. And there's going to be a few terms that I'm going to be a broken record on. You'll hear them over and over and over, and I just want to make sure you know them for when you're traveling. But the first two are data and Wi-Fi. Data sometimes has the code of LTE, we'll have 4G or 3G, 2G, etc. This is the information when it's connected either to a satellite or a receiving tower. And this is the one that can get expensive very fast. So know when you're connected to data and know how to avoid it when you're traveling. But basically when you're walking the streets and you want to look at Google, that's your data. Wi-Fi is the one you have to actually go out of your way to connect to, but it's usually faster, and again, it should be free. Normally you pick a network, a lot of times it's locked, so you'll need to have a code. You just type in that code, and then you'll be connected on that network, free to do whatever you want. When you're on Wi-Fi, this is when you watch cat videos. When you're not on Wi-Fi, wait, just save them for later because you'll use all your data way too quickly. This is an example of what an international plan could look like from your provider. Each provider of the big names are a little bit different, but they have definitely gotten more affordable. You can see for roughly $25, you can get a basic international plan from this company. It's going to still charge you $1.79 a minute when you're traveling. It's going to charge you 50 cents to send a text, 5 cents to receive one, and it's going to give you 100 megabytes. Now 100 megabytes at first may sound okay, but 100 megabytes is not a lot by any means. The example I like to give is an email, if it's just text, could be up to a megabyte, that's not too bad. But the second somebody puts a picture in it, that can become 3 to 5. If you watch a video, again one of those cat videos or a kid doing something silly, that could be half your 100 megabytes, it could be all of your 100 megabytes right then, and then you'd have to pay another $25 to get another 100 megabytes. So you really want to be careful on the data usage when you're traveling. You can see next to it they have another option where you can pay a little bit more, and then you have an allowance rather than pay as you go. And then if you didn't do either of those, the true pay as you go gets very expensive very fast. And if you look to the far side, you'll see the international travel data. They're going to charge you roughly $2 for every megabyte. So that's going to get very expensive fast. So if you do think there's any chance you'll use your data on your current provider, you probably want to pay for the international plan ahead of time. And again, $25 doesn't break the bank, and it gives you a backup just in case. Check with your provider though. Some are better. Some providers even give you unlimited free data now. So it's always good to double check with your provider for more specifics. If you want to be able to call hotels, call your family or friends who live in Europe, maybe you're a family of 5 and you just want to have a way to call each other at any point during the day, that's where you may want to invest in an unlocked phone and a SIM card. The way this works is Europe's done it a little different than us for a long time. You buy the phone you want, and then you buy a SIM card, which is the actual company, the cellular connection, and you put that in the phone. This way you can have a nice mix of it. You can get unlocked phones here or when you travel. The one warning I'll give though is prepaid data is not as cheap as you might want it to be. SIM cards are great for phone calls and text. They're very affordable to buy them there. And again, if you know you're going to make many calls while traveling, it would be worth stopping at a store in Europe and buying a SIM card for either your unlocked phone or buy an unlocked phone while you're there. I actually have a very basic unlocked phone that I travel with when I know I'm going to be making a lot of calls. I sometimes do guidebook research, and in that case I do have to call ahead a lot to either make sure my reservation's ready, make sure the person I'm trying to meet with is there. I think most travelers don't need to do this as often. I think most travelers actually can send a confirmation email when they're on Wi-Fi to the next hotel. They can use Google or other search engines to look up something before they leave. So calling ahead like you had to do even 10 years ago, probably not as needed for the general traveler. SIM cards, they kind of look like memory cards for cameras, but they come in different sizes now. They also go in different places. Often they go behind the battery of a phone. For some of the smartphones, they just go right in the side. They're a micro SIM card. But again, prepaid data, I usually see, it costs about $20 for about 100 megabytes, which is pretty much the same thing your current provider will do, and you don't have to do the hassle of buying a SIM card. This is a big reason some Europeans are starting to go closer to our subscription style, is so that they get a data allowance that's more affordable rather than prepaying for data. Because SIM cards, usually you prepay for minutes for your phone call or for when you're texting someone. So just think about how much you would really need a phone if you're thinking of getting a SIM card. And if you do want to get one, you can find them at stores like this. Now, these sort of stores, I have actually bought a lot of SIM cards from them. They tend to be a little more affordable, but it is buyer beware a little bit. I've had pretty good luck. You can find the bigger names, the more official stores. Big companies in Europe include Vodafone, Wind, 3, but otherwise you can go in here. And even if you're in a country you don't speak the language, Schrades usually gets you as far as you need. Basically, if you need the phone, you point at a phone. And then you point at the SIM card, you smile, it works pretty well. Same thing if you come up with the one you already have, you just say, go from there. Usually they can figure out what it is you're trying to do. Same thing if you need to top up minutes, just walk in with your phone, show them the SIM card, have money ready, and they can help you put more money on it if you run out. But let's focus on Wi-Fi, because really, this is the best thing to happen to travelers. This is what's going to let you stay connected and not feel like you're totally disconnected or have to panic about how am I going to communicate with friends or family back home or ahead of time when you're in Europe. Wi-Fi is pretty much everywhere, especially European travel. You'll find it at most hotels. If it's in Rick's book, there's a very good chance there's going to be free Wi-Fi because that's a fight Rick has been doing for travelers for a long time. Some sites have free Wi-Fi. Some parks in Europe have free Wi-Fi. Some cities are Wi-Fi zones. I know Barcelona is trying to get that started. And some countries are trying to become entire Wi-Fi zones. So Europe is well ahead of the United States when it comes to Wi-Fi. If you're not finding any of these convenient options, this is your chance to go stop in at a cafe. Go to not an internet cafe, they don't exist. Go to a normal cafe, and when you're there, you'll be able to connect to a Wi-Fi. Often you'll have to buy something, but this is a good chance to actually get an Italian coffee, go get a French pastry. Just buy something and just ask for the Wi-Fi password, and they're happy to give it to you. So you can get connected to Wi-Fi quite easily. So Wi-Fi is probably what you're going to focus on, but I want to make sure you have your phone set up where you will not be charged without knowing it. So this is, again, where we'll get a little more detailed. You're going to hear the same word over and over again, but I know you can all handle it. These two icons, get familiar with if you haven't already. One is Apple's, one is Android's. Androids can sometimes look a little different, and I also like to warn right now, Android has different versions of what their platform looks like. So when you're looking at these slides, if your Android phone doesn't look exactly like this one, don't panic. That's normal. And your steps to find these options should be very similar, if still not exactly the same. Apple has kind of kept the same style for like 10 years almost now. So those should look pretty similar. The first term you're going to hear a lot is airplane mode. Airplane mode is a traveler's best friend. It was originally made for people who wanted to use their phone while on an airplane because you weren't allowed to have your data or your Wi-Fi on while flying. So you could turn this on and then you could use your phone offline. Another word you're going to hear. Offline means you are not connected to anything. Offline has data off, it has Wi-Fi off. So when you do this, when you're traveling, you know everything's turned off. If you go to settings on an Apple phone, you'll see it right there at the top. You can just click it on right there, and very quickly it turns off everything. It will turn off your Wi-Fi, and you'll notice cellular, which is what's connected to your data, it turns a gray color, meaning you can't change it. And it also says airplane mode, letting you know data is 100% turned off. If you want the shortcut, if you're on your main screen, you can put your finger right where that X is. The X won't be on your phone, just put it in that area. And if you push your finger up, you'll get this control panel. And this is where you can get to some quick options. You can change your music quickly, adjust your brightness. You can also then turn airplane mode on right there. Next to it is Wi-Fi if you want to turn that on or off. You'll see on the bottom pane there's a flashlight, there's a calculator, quickly get to the camera. You have a few options right there. On an Android device, similar settings. You hit the settings button. Somewhere it should say connection, like you see on the top of this version. From there you can go to more networks. And within that, you can turn on airplane mode. A lot of Android phones also have a quick option similar to Apple's, but you start at the top and you pull down, and it'll have some of the main icons. Airplane mode is usually one also. Now, airplane mode is probably all you need, but I know people like to make sure they have everything turned off ahead of time. No one likes a surprise charge, myself included. So you can do a few extra steps to make sure your data is turned off. First part is go to settings, click on cellular. You'll notice airplane mode right now is not turned on. It's in normal settings right now. But you can turn on or click on cellular, and within that you'll quickly see cellular data and data roaming. You want to turn both of those off. So right now it's showing them on, but if you click it, the green will go away and they'll be off. Now you're 100% sure your phone won't connect to those. But again, for simplicity, airplane mode is really the one I want you to practice with. Practice, practice, practice. Android, similar again. Go to settings with connection on the top. Click more networks. Click mobile networks. And from there, you can access your mobile data and just turn it off, and also turn off data roaming. So all types of phones, these will be similar settings. I do recommend before you travel, practice this over and over again. Practice turning on airplane mode. Practice knowing what works in airplane mode and what doesn't. You can also practice accessing your data ahead of time, but it's really airplane mode I think is the one that's the easiest, friendliest, and you'll have fewer problems with surprise bills. I also recommend before you go, download whether it's iTunes or the Play Store so you can download apps. If you do it in the United States, it thinks you're from the United States. If you wait till you're in Europe, it may think you're German, and it just makes life harder later. Also, everything we talk about, especially when we get to apps, practice using them here. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. Now, connecting to Wi-Fi, I would think a lot of people have tested this before, but just to play it safe, those settings are pretty easy. Now on this slide, you'll see airplane mode is on, which then originally turned off my Wi-Fi. When I click on Wi-Fi though, unlike cellular, you can adjust Wi-Fi. So you click on that, and you can turn Wi-Fi back on. Once it's back on, you pick the network that you want. Once you've picked that network, you should be connected. Now you'll notice that they have lock symbols. Secure networks will come with a little lock symbol, and I recommend using these kind of connections more than anything else. But you usually need a password for these, and that should be provided by either your hotel, a cafe. Some places are set up with an unsecure network originally, but then it takes you to a login screen that needs a password. That's okay too, as long as there's some sort of protection. I, every now and then, will connect to an unsecure network, but I won't do anything drastic with it. Meaning, I might do a quick Google search, but I will not open my email. I will not use my credit card by any means, because it's just too easy for someone to kind of see what you're doing. But if you just need to do a quick search on something very basic, where a museum is, that would probably still be okay unsecure, but for just personal safety of your information, I would use secure networks. Android, very similar. You can connect airplane mode, and then you go back to Wi-Fi, turn it back on, and from there, same thing, pick your network. It'll connect you right then. And now think about what you have. You have your phone in airplane mode, so everything is disconnected. You turn back on Wi-Fi, so now you know you're only connecting to the type of information that should be free. Your phone is not going to connect to a cellular network where the data charges add up very fast. So Wi-Fi is really going to be your best friend when you're traveling. Track that down, connect to it. Again, when you're in the middle of the streets of Budapest, confused on where you are, it's not a bad idea to just detour into a little cafe, order a cup of coffee, ask for their Wi-Fi, connect, find where you are on the map, send an email if you need to. Wi-Fi is going to make all this a lot easier than you think. I know a lot of people like to be connected at all times, but it's easy to disconnect from that. there's one setting that I want to really make sure you also understand, because this is the one that will surprise you if you've used all your data. This is for people who decided to purchase the international plan from your provider. So if you decide to have that for a backup, you want to make sure your email and your apps are set up correctly. If you have it set to be push, which is what the word Apple tends to use, or sync, which is what Android tends to use, that means it's just going to push it right to your device. This can take all your data without you knowing it. So you could have been in airplane mode, no connection, and you decided, I want to check something really quick. And you turn off airplane mode, you connect to a cellular network in Europe, and if your phone is set to push or sync, it feels that you're connected and it sends everything that's been building up. So that means all 100 emails that have been building up over the past 2 days get pushed right on your phone. And if there's pictures in there, if there's links to things, it easily could all of a sudden take all 100 megabytes that you're allowed without you knowing it. Apps have similar settings where if you don't set it ahead of time, it could just automatically update the second it feels a connection. So I would recommend changing push or sync to either fetch, which is either a schedule, or you can go in and actually set it to be manually fetch, which is the best setting when you're travel. Set it to manual. This means your phone will not update apps, it will not download emails or anything unless you tell it to. So when you're ready to actually use data, you can use this. If you left it in push, it's just going to do it without you knowing it. The way you'll get to that is in settings. You can scroll down the page just a little bit. From there you can find mail, contacts, and calendar. If you click on that one, it's going to take you to this screen where you can pick fetch new data. You can see I have it off right now. But it'll take you to the next screen and you go fetch new data one more time, and that's going to lead you to that push icon where you can turn it off. So right now it is set to be off for me. You can even then go into each app or each connection and change it to either be fetch or manual, or you can also come down here a little bit and in the fetch settings change it to just be manual also. You can do all of it just to make sure everything is manual, but again, this will make sure you can really use that 100 megabytes as sparingly as possible to avoid having to be charged over and over again on that limit. So play with your phone on this one. Double check you have your settings the way you want it before your trip. Android, similar yet again, but again they like the word sync rather than push. So this one you go to accounts on the top, and one big difference I've noticed using Android is they tend to have you go into each sort of application. So instead of just going to mail in general, you have to pick your Google option. You also then have to go to your Facebook option, etc. But you want to make sure they're all set not to be synced. So once you click on Google in this example, you then pick your account, and within there you'll see that it's syncing everything. So if you want to make sure it's not syncing all these options in Google's, you'll actually uncheck all of them. I just showed on the bottom what it should look like when you've turned it off. But otherwise, when you open it, it'll probably have everything with some sort of green check or some sort of option that says on. You want to make sure you go through and turn everything off. Before we look at some of the communication apps, I just like to bring up a point that's important to me. Lots of people traveled in the 80s, the 90s, even the thousands, probably without any sort of smartphone or tablet. And what you kind of did back then probably was organize a meeting point. If you're going to go two different directions, say, be at that restaurant at 6 p.m. Or you organized, if we get separated, meet here, meet back at the hotel. Get that sort of option put together. Carry the business card of your hotel, just in case you're afraid you're going to wander off somewhere. Then you can show the business card and ask, do you know where this is? Or get in a taxi, show them that, and they'll take you right there. I just like to say, this still works. Just because cell phones exist now doesn't mean you have to always use it. It's good to still use some of those traditional travel skills to get around. What you can easily do is pick that time. Now, you're going to probably have your device, and you know some tricks now where you could use it to connect. Even if you want to use Wi-Fi with people you're traveling with, one thing that works now that kind of meets in the middle of this separation idea is if you get separated, you'll both go find a cafe, you'll both get online, and you'll wait for the other one to send you a message either through email or an instant message which goes through Wi-Fi, something along those lines to make sure you can find each other again. Or if you paid for the international plan, that's that time that you're going to use one text maybe to find out where the other person is quickly. So a mixture of both is fine. I know we all love to just get our phone out and call the person or send them a text. But while traveling, depending who your provider is, it's just not necessarily going to be the cheapest or easiest option for you. With that said, though, there are some great apps to keep you connected either at home or while traveling. I like to start with Google Hangouts because Google is kind of the perfect American company in my opinion, which means they're really good about taking someone else's idea, taking someone else's other great idea, putting them together in one app that they put their name on. And that's kind of what Google Hangouts done. It's taken a lot of the video chat, internet phone call, instant messaging programs and put them together in an easy use fashion. If your friends and family don't have a Google account, they probably will have to set one up, but it's free and it's easy. And what's nice about Google Hangout is you can have multiple people in one conversation. You can just have one-on-one conversations. You can see at the bottom, there's a little phone icon. That actually lets you do internet calling at a very affordable rates, usually around 2 or 3 cents a minute. So that's an easy way to call back home. The video chat works surprisingly well also, and it can do a whole conference call. And the way it works is if you have a good Wi-Fi connection, a nice strong one, it's a great way to just call multiple people at once. And it does a great job of jumping back and forth on the screen of who's talking. So as someone talks, they become the big screen and everyone else goes small. You can also just click on the person you want to listen to. With this Wi-Fi connection part, why it's in my mind, I do like to warn, buildings in Europe weren't necessarily made for Wi-Fi. They were made to keep invaders out. So a lot of old buildings have really thick walls. Don't be surprised if your hotel's this way and you don't get the greatest connection in your room. Walk down to the lobby. They always make sure that's the strongest Wi-Fi point. And one thing I've noticed that I love seeing is Wi-Fi has started connecting travelers. Because they're in this old hotel, they come down to the lobby to check their email, but then another traveler does too, and another one, and they start talking with each other. They start finding out, what did you do while you're here? How long have you been in Madrid? And they start sharing their ideas, building sort of a connection. And so while they're kind of disconnecting from everyone else, they're also reconnecting with travelers too. So it's a great way to just meet other travelers if your room does not have as strong of a connection as you're hoping for. I do like to bring up Skype because they are one of the first people to really have this online call. I was using it for a long time. I was fortunate enough to do a year abroad in England back in 2006. And that's roughly about the time Skype was really getting popular. And so someone told me about it. And I was actually curious, how would I stay in contact with my family back home? Skype made it really easy. You just connected there, and at that point it was through computers, which still works. But you connect, you can do video chats if it's Skype to Skype for free. You can also use it to call phone numbers, whether it's in the United States or in Europe. But there have been times when I'm traveling that, even not for calling home, if all of a sudden my debit card isn't working like it's supposed to, I just connect to Wi-Fi, get on Skype, call the number through Skype, and that way it's only costing me 2 cents a minute. I know most banks say they have that toll-free international number, but sometimes it just does not cooperate in my opinion, and I've had better luck just using Skype. You'll also see my credit there of $4.63. I put $10 Skype credit on my phone about 6 years ago. So it lasts a real long time, as long as you're connected to Wi-Fi. And again, another big reason is it is free if you're talking Skype to Skype, meaning one person is logged into their Skype account and you are too. That is free. If you do want to make a phone call, it will cost you a little bit, but not much. And here's just an example of a way that you can, if you're the person at the cafe in the screen calling back to your family who's curious where you are, you can use the video chat if you have a beautiful view of the Eiffel Tower in your hotel in Paris. Just point out the window and just brag a little bit. Skype does make it easy to call. They take care of all the country code issues for you. So if you go to the paid calling screen, you just type in the area code and the 10-digit number, and it'll do the rest for you. And again, it can do it for landlines or mobile phones for about 3 cents a minute. So you can easily talk for a while. Another trick that's nice with Skype is if you want to call a hotel before your trip. You're in the United States, you really want to stay at this one hotel, but every time you email them, it's not coming back. You're not hearing anything. So you want to make sure, are they open? Are they getting my emails? Do I have a reservation? Skype will make that affordable and easy to do. In this case, you click that country code area, you find the country you're trying to call. Let's say in this case, we're going to pick France. See right there at the top, it puts in the country code. Now you just need to type in their normal number, the one that they list on their website or we list in guidebooks. And then you can call ahead. Try and make sure you do it during their 9 to 5 hours. Don't call them at like 1 a.m. They're not going to appreciate it. But Skype will make it easy for you to call ahead if you need to. You can also use this when you're in Europe too. If you're already in Germany and you want to call your next hotel, connect to the Wi-Fi at your current hotel, call the number in Germany of your next hotel, and it can keep it more affordable too if you don't want to try dealing with figuring out a local phone. Because through Skype, it's very easy and affordable. This section is for all the Apple users. Android users take a little siesta right now. But if you ever used your iPhone, you may notice some people will have blue text messages when you text them. Some people will have green. And this is because of iMessage. iMessage is when it goes through Apple's own server, which is usually through Wi-Fi. But if you're connected to data, it'll go through that also. If it's green, it means it was sent as a text message, which means it went through a cellular network, your current provider. So take a look at your phone, go through your text messages, see who's blue, see who's green. If it's blue, it means you can text them over Wi-Fi no matter where you are. When you connect to Wi-Fi in your hotel room in Paris, you can text your friend back home just like you were still at home. It doesn't matter with Wi-Fi on iMessage, blue color text. If the person you want to text is a green color, that means you have to actually use either a cellular network or use Google Hangouts like I just talked about, or one of these other programs. WhatsApp is another one that gets brought up a lot. It's similar to Google Hangouts. Same with Viber. It's much like Skype. Test all of these if you like, but the ones I show are the ones I've used for quite a while and feel very comfortable with and like to recommend. All right, Android users can wake up again. So, what I really think your smartphone or your tablet is going to be beneficial towards is your transportation and your navigation. Getting around can be a little confusing in a new city. People definitely can still take traditional maps. I think it's good for a backup, but there are some apps that are going to make life easier. Really, cell phones have become the modern day Swiss Army knife. I mean, everyone has one of these now and knows how to basically make it do something for them, and there's a lot more it can do without you knowing it. So a few apps I like include City Maps to Go. I know I've told you about 2 kinds of connections. Does everyone remember data? Does everyone remember Wi-Fi? There's actually a 3rd connection that's always running, but on most phones you can't turn it off, and that's your GPS. And a big reason for this, the government says they want GPS always running, so if you call 911, they can track you down easily. Edward Snowden might have given us a few other ideas why they wanted it on, but luckily a few travel app designers realized the benefit of this. So even when you're traveling, your GPS knows where you are, even if you are in airplane mode, totally disconnected from cellular and data. City Maps to Go utilizes this. First thing it does is it'll show you where you are on the map, and that's that little blue dot you see there. It will not give you walking directions if you're trying to find somewhere specific, but ahead of time, you can put pins of where you want to go. So the way this app works is you download it. Once you have it downloaded, you actually have to be connected, Wi-Fi preferably, and then download the cities you're going to. You download their map when you're connected to Wi-Fi at home so that you can use them offline when you're there. And it works very well. This case, it's actually Edmonds, Washington, but it'll show where you are, and then I put a little pin of where I want to go later, meaning when you're traveling, you should pin your hotel, pin the train station if you're going to be using it, any of the sites you might use. And basically what this lets you do is when you're ready to head out, you can look and see where you are on your device, and then you can see where it is you want to go. And that little triangle, it also follows what direction you're looking. So basically, you can also come out of a metro tube. That's a big time when I'm usually confused. Come out of the metro tube, look at that, turn, I need to go this direction. That's usually enough to get you there. It's kind of like a traditional map, but without having to track yourself down on it. One trick I have learned with it, though, is if you board your flight in the United States, and we'll say fly to Amsterdam, the first time you open it, it has a hard time finding where you are at first. It can take sometimes 5 minutes to find you. And that's because the satellites using GPS are looking for you back at home in the United States or Canada. It's taking it a while to find you over in Amsterdam. So what you can do in this situation is if you can connect to either your data briefly or Wi-Fi at your hotel, that will let it find you like that. In just half a second, it will know where you are. And from that point on, when you're in airplane mode and completely offline, it knows where to start looking for you a lot quicker. So that works pretty well to make it even more efficient for you. But download a lot of the places you're going, pin those important information beforehand, and this one can make getting around cities very easy. Google Maps is the next one I bring up, and there's a good chance this will be the only one you'll need at a certain point. Google Maps has gotten better and better and better. Google Maps can do a lot of things, but for it to do everything, it's needed a connection for a long time, which made it not my favorite travel app, but it's getting better. When you are connected, you can see you can have driving directions, you can use public transportation, and this is great in big cities, especially Paris and London. They'll tell me what metro to get on, which one I need to transfer to, maybe what bus to catch. It works very well, but you need to be connected, Wi-Fi or data. It can give you walking directions, and it can even give you biking directions if you want. And so when you're connected, hotel, cafe, it can do all of this quickly, easily. It's wonderful. Offline, it used to not do a whole lot for you, but luckily for us, they've updated this. If you go to your settings within your Google Maps, you can click right here on offline areas. Once you click that, you're going to want to go to that plus sign down there at the bottom. Once you click that, it's going to ask you to pick the area you want to download. So in this case, while I'm connected to Wi-Fi, you do need a connection for this part, you can start downloading that region. You can download an entire map of Paris right now. Once you hit download, it's going to take some room on your phone, but you'll see it starts downloading. It's going to have that whole area offline. But the one downfall is when I'm offline, it's not going to give me walking directions. I use that red arrow at the top to show I am in airplane mode right now. But when I click walking, it says not available offline. If I go to driving, however, it does it for me because it's offline driving directions. So this is where I say for people walking around cities using it, it's still maybe good to double check by connecting to Wi-Fi what the walking direction is, because you don't really want to walk along a freeway like it might be telling the car to do. So within a city, you might want to just double check things if you have a chance. But where it's really big are people driving in the countryside. One big question I do get in the travel center a lot is, what do I do about GPS in Tuscany and Umbria? Well, now you can actually download a pretty big area of that. You can see this is a lot of Tuscany and a lot of Umbria right there. You'll notice that I am connected right now because I'm going to need to download this area. And I also have it underlined in the data area. It's taking 1,500 megabytes, which is a gig and a half. Depending how much storage is on your phone, this can be a huge chunk of it. And so you might not be able to download a lot of maps, but try and make enough room to at least get one of these. But once you download it, it's going to take some time because a gigabyte and a half is a pretty big file. Once it's done though, you can look up driving directions offline. Notice that arrow again is showing airplane mode. So when I did this, I was completely offline. No Wi-Fi, no data. And it was able to show me how to get from Hotel Accademia in Florence all the way down to the Siena Cathedral. Once you start driving, it does have the voice navigation with you. It does tell you the step-by-step of what to prepare. So this is really going to change things to make it a lot easier on drivers in Provence in France, Tuscany, Umbria here. Just get used to it though. Download this, download your home area right now, practice using it offline after you've downloaded your home area, and really drive around, see if it's working for you, see if it's giving you the right directions. More than likely it will, and just keep an eye on how much room in your storage these maps are taking. All subways for the people in the cities who are going to be taking public transportation. I like this app just because it does give you an option to look at those metro maps. And I have been asked before, aren't those usually free in the metro stations? Aren't there signs usually in the metro stations? And I say yes, there usually are. Although in my own personal experience, once in Barcelona, when I got off the train, I was going to catch the subway, first time there. I got to the big map, which was heavily graffitied, and then I looked where they should have the free metro maps, and they were empty. Luckily, I remembered I had this app, and it truly has pretty much every city you would need in the app. And it's nice HD metro maps. You download the app once, it comes with the maps included already. It updates them for you free of charge also, and it really has a wide range. But the way it can work is, here's Paris for example. You can definitely have a very busy metro map. Paris is one of the best metros in the world, and when you're there, you're probably going to use the metro more than anything else. You can zoom in, stays nice HD detail if you really need to see closer areas. And it's going to have a lot of those, if not all of those European cities. And just to show that they have everything, they even have the less impressive US cities, which have one metro line. So in this case, it's Seattle, airport up to downtown. So the fact that they even included that shows you can expect that those European cities with great public transportation networks will be available too. I like to show NavMe. It's probably going to slowly fade out for me if Google Maps truly keeps it up. But NavMe was an offline app a little bit before everyone else. But the way they work is NavMe comes in different country apps. So you do NavMe Italy, NavMe France. And they would boast that they were free offline map apps. And that is true, they were. When I have tested it though, I would say for driving, it was always about 10 to 30 seconds behind of where I actually was. And when driving, that's a big deal. I do believe they're going to get it better and better as it goes, and it's a good backup for you if you want to just have something else to go along with Google Maps or City Maps to go. But where it did work great for me was looking up walking directions. Unlike Google Maps, offline it still gave walking directions. It is free, and it followed me a lot closer because you move a lot slower walking, at least I assume most of us do. And there are options if you want to pay for different aspects within the app. One option is you can pay for different voices. If you want Snoop Dogg to tell you where you're going, you do have that option to purchase that voice in there. So I don't think you really need to personally, but it is one option for you. If anyone going to Europe is riding a train, this should be high on their priority of an app to download. Even if you're not sure you're going to ride a train, I would download this just so it's ready. DB Navigator is the German rail company's app. And the Germans put it upon themselves to know everyone's train schedule, anywhere in Europe. Wow. It's very important to them. I'm pretty sure the Germans know the Italian rail better than Rail Italia does. So you can connect and look up schedules. So this is the one downfall to this app though. To look up a train schedule, you do need a connection, Wi-Fi or data. But there are some tricks to use it offline. But first, just so you get familiar with it, here's your start screen with it. But you can go here and you can just put in where you're going. So at the top you'll see I was looking Amsterdam to Paris. I gave it the date, and then it gives me some options. You can also then easily see that there's the departure time, the arrival time, how many connections, how long the duration of the trip is, and get an idea of which one you want to connect with. In this case, you'd probably want the 0 connection, that's second. You can also click the specific route and see where you're transferring. In this case, it has a transfer in Rotterdam. It tells you how long your transfer is. You can even click it again, and it will tell you every intermediate stop. This has helped me a couple times when I've maybe fallen asleep on the train. Wake up, panic, did I miss my stop? The trains usually tell you what the next stop is, and I've opened this and seen, oh, nope, I have 2 more stops. That's good. And when I say open this, on the train I'm usually offline. So there's a little step that I like to make sure you're prepared for. And these beautiful pictures I'm taking is done by taking a screenshot of your phone. And this is great to have information you searched ahead of time available offline. And what you have to do, Android or Apple, is you press the power button that usually turns on and off the screen on the side or the top, and the home button, usually the round button on the bottom. Press them at the same time. On Apple devices, usually if your sound's on, you'll hear a click, kind of like a camera, and a flash. Androids, you have to hold a little bit longer, but same thing. Usually some sort of flash or a square will highlight. And that means your screen has been moved to your camera roll, or where your pictures are that you normally take. So what I like to do sometimes with Bon is I'll look up the schedule I'm going to be using, take a screenshot, and that way when I'm on the train offline later, I can just open up the picture of what I should be expecting. You can also do this with confirmation emails. Let's say you got a little barcode that someone has to scan later. Take a screenshot of it. Now you can use it offline. You can even use that with some of the map apps if you want to make sure that you have a map for you offline in a picture mode. Although again, maps have gotten better for offline use. But for DB Bond and everything else like that, I do think it's really good to practice taking screenshots, have them saved on your phone for offline use. So that again is right here. There are a few more general apps that I think are well worth looking at before you travel. Of course, Rick Steves Audio Europe, and I'm actually very proud of this one, and I know Rick is too. Rick has always wanted to be your tour guide. He always wants to be there with you, but he can't be with everyone at all times. So luckily, this free app, he can actually give you audio tours where he is your guide in your ear. It also has access to all of his podcasts, which are his radio programs. And these can range from a guide that he's having an interview with to an expert who wrote a book about something. And it's a good way to get you excited about where you're going or learn a little bit more about the background. The way the app works is you download things ahead of time, meaning when you're connected to Wi-Fi, you download the audio tour or the podcast that you want to listen to. Once it's downloaded to your device, you can listen to it offline, because we know you don't want to be connecting while you're traveling. So download it ahead of time. The podcasts actually work great for that long flight. You probably have anywhere between 6 and 12 hours of flight time. So if you want to get more excited about where you're going, just sit back, listen to that interview, learn something more about your next destination. Or even if you're renting a car and you have one long trip or even a train ride, another good chance for you to just relax and learn without having to stress yourself too much. But to find the information once you download the app is you go to add tracks and you pick the destination of where you're going. When you're on the next screen, you'll pick those tracks you want to download while you're connected. So in this case, you'll see that in the Britain-London locations, there's the British Museum. And if you see that little blue symbol, it's from Berlin. It's the crossing guard signal in Berlin, East Berlin. That means it's a walking tour. And that's where Rick will be your guide through your device, through your earphone. Below that, you'll see some more of the general information, whether it's just some travel tips for you, whether it's a podcast, but anything that catches your eye, download ahead of time. It's going to be put into your playlist. From there, that's where you can access anything you've downloaded ahead of time. And then you can just sit back. Rick has some great walking ones. He even has a few that uses public transportation. There's one that's you jump on a Vaporetto in the Grand Canal in Venice, and he'll tell you what you should be noticing. He also has one around the Ringstrasse in Vienna. And so he keeps trying to add more and more to these. But while you're listening to it on the device, you'll see a picture, kind of what you should be looking at. You can pause it, which works great on those public transportation audio tours because sometimes they don't move the same speed as Rick was recording it. So if there's a delay, it's nice to pause it and wait for the next one to happen. You can even bring up the map to get an idea of where it is you're going to be going to try and stay on target. And with that also, if you're having a hard time understanding Rick's thick Edmonds accent, there are the scripts too that you can read along with. So you have some options for you. TripIt is great for the type A person who wants to really keep everything organized. I know in some of my early trips, had big piles of papers that I printed out just to make sure everything was in order. And this will help save you some weight, help save some trees, and it does a very good job of keeping things organized. You can actually allow TripIt to access your email, and it will scan it every now and then, and look for if you have any confirmation emails, whether it's from air travel, whether it's from hotels, car rentals, anything along those lines. And you can also add things yourself if you want to put a specific note about a certain day. But it'll put it in that chronological order for you. Great icons with the time. You can see in this older trip, had a flight Seattle to Amsterdam, then connected Amsterdam to Luxembourg, stayed at a hotel. A little bit later, I took a train. And so it just keeps that all organized for you. The one thing I also like about it is what you're seeing here. It saves your past trips. So it uploads new ones, gets them ready for you, but it saves all that old information. So in a year from now, when you think, what hotel did we stay at in Luxembourg? You can access your past trips and see everything you did. And if you really want a visual of what your trip is going to look like when you're traveling, it has this great map feature too, where you can see where it's going. TripIt works decently well offline, but you do need it to connect to update anything new. But once it's updated, it works offline. It just won't pull anything new that you might have reserved. But that's usually enough for most people. Before you fly out, connect it. It'll upload everything you need. You're good to go. So TripIt really has helped just keep that organized. And again, I love looking back at what I've done. Dropbox connects to the cloud. Now, I know a lot of people have heard about this cloud that we're all putting our data in, and just it's very handy for travelers. One tip that you still can do, but you can shift it, is we've always said have a printed copy of your passport somewhere in your bag or somewhere just on hand. I actually think Dropbox is a better choice to put a scanned copy of your passport within there. They have protection codes. You need accounts to log in. And this way you can actually access your passport anywhere. Dropbox can also be accessed through a computer. You go to their website and you sign in, and then anything you've uploaded to it is available. Meaning if you do lose your passport or unfortunately have it stolen, you can go to a hotel lobby computer or even just ask your hotel to borrow their computer, print your passport. A printed version of your passport is enough to get into an embassy. And that way you can start getting everything issued for the replacement. The other documents I think are well worth having in your Dropbox for travel are things like a packing list, if you're that type of person, to actually have that, to make sure you're remembering what you're bringing home. And also to put in the phone numbers to your credit card companies. You don't necessarily need the credit card numbers written out, but just the phone numbers. So if you do lose a credit card or something's not working, you can open up that document, see that phone number, and give them a call. Dropbox you can also load with photos, music. They give you 2 gigabytes for free, but if you want to pay for a little bit more memory, you can. I don't think it's needed for most travelers, but if you are a person who wants lots of photos on there, lots of just music, documents, then you probably need a little bit more. Dropbox works really great for people who might be going to visit friends or family in Europe too, and you want to show pictures of your kids, of your house, of your dog, and not have to carry a whole bunch with you. You can instead just load some into the Dropbox account, connect on your friends or family's Wi-Fi, open up Dropbox, and let them see those pictures that way without taking room on your phone, without taking up space and weight in your suitcase. Google Drive is another version of this. The main reason I talk about Dropbox, though, is I have used both. And on a side tangent, these phones take great panorama photos. And if you don't know what that is, I recommend testing it, but it's when you can get a good look at everything around you in this long photo. When I uploaded those panorama photos I took for backup onto Dropbox, they were just fine. When I uploaded them to Google Drive, they were corrupted and lost forever. So because of that, Dropbox is the one I recommend more now. But Google Drive may fix that. Otherwise, though, they're basically the same app, depending on which one you like better yourself. But I tend to lean towards Dropbox. Google Translate can really help you get over those language hurdles. It's free and definitely the easiest one to use in my opinion. There are a lot of translation apps out there, but Google Translate is user-friendly. For Apple users, it has one issue though, is you need a connection to look up a new phrase. You need to connect to Wi-Fi or data to search something. But if you do a little pre-planning, you can put in a lot of different phrases ahead of time. Put in the pleasantries, look up hello, goodbye, please, thank you, where's the restroom, how much does that cost, please stop, anything along those lines. Look them up ahead of time, and it will save it into the stored memory on the app. It may not give you the audio version where you press it and it speaks it to you, but it will show the translation, and it'll help you give a chance to at least read it, or worst case scenario, show it to one of the people, in this case France, you can maybe show it to them, a waiter, if you're trying to say something specific. Android users, you can actually download the entire language dictionary onto your device for offline use. Apple, you can't yet. But when you download that dictionary, it's a huge file yet again. It's going to take a lot of storage memory on your device. So you may not need to use that. The best thing that Google has done is, it kind of works with what I talked about earlier, is they made use of another company's app and made it in their own. So if you click this camera icon right there, it's going to access your camera. And let's say you run into a sign like this. And you can be completely offline right now. This feature is offline, no data or Wi-Fi needed. But you see that sign and you say, what does that mean? Just point your phone at it after you hit the camera. And if you'll notice, the French is also turned to English on the screen of your phone. It knew to look at French, and they knew to switch it to English. This option is available in most European country languages, but it works amazingly well. It's really good for use with menus also. In Europe, I'd say usually the menu has some English, but not always, and sometimes it's nice to double check what it is you might be ordering. If it's a typed font, it works wonderfully. Handwriting, it doesn't really work, but somehow it's able to look at that original sign and change it right on the screen of your device to be offline and to be in English. I don't understand how it works offline. I'm pretty sure dark magic is involved somehow. Someone in the Harry Potter universe was designing this app, but it works great. And just for another example again, you point at the sign, the original one, German there on the right, and it will make it English on the screen on your phone. This was a company called WordLens. They were bought by Google, and so Google just put it right into their translation app. So that's the biggest reason, in my opinion, to download Google Translate if you haven't already. TripAdvisor, there's definitely some great things on TripAdvisor, and I know some people think that working at a travel guidebook company, we should hate TripAdvisor. We definitely don't. We always like to warn, though, of two big things with these sort of review forums. One, sometimes what we like to call cronyism happens, especially in places like Italy and Ireland, where someone has 30 cousins and then asks them to leave great reviews about his restaurant or hotel, and then go to his competitor's review and list awful, awful information. If you see a hotel or a restaurant with thousands of reviews, more than likely most of those are real. The other thing I also like to bring up is humans tend to like to focus on the negative. It's just what we do. And so if someone did have a bad experience, they probably went online and wrote about it. But think about all the good experiences, especially in your own life, that you did not bother to go leave about a restaurant you like. Usually we're driven to leave reviews when it's negative. But the reason I put TripAdvisor's app on here is it has a nice feature called Near Me Now. And this is for people who've kind of done everything they plan to do, and now they're just curious, what else could I do? Or if you're hungry and you want to find what's near you. I myself am not a planner when it comes to eating. I don't plan to eat at the best restaurant usually. It's more sightseeing. I'm hungry now. I want to know what I can get quickly. But you do need a connection to access this. So again, Wi-Fi, turn on your data. But my example I used on a personal trip to Buenos Aires, it was pretty nice to just kind of be in the hotel and be curious, what is around me right now? Hit Near Me Now, and I saw that there is a Beatles museum, the band, not the animal. And it got me very curious, what is a Beatles museum doing in Argentina? So it was actually a great way to see that, and it had some personal collection and just a lot of South American connections with the Beatles. But little things like that I never would have known were just a few blocks away from me without hitting that button. So just another option for the extra sightseeing or restaurants you may not have known were near you. Currency conversion is definitely tricky. I like XE's app, and there's a few of them that are all great, but I think theirs is the easiest to read because it does multiple currencies at once. So depending how your brain is wired, you could put it to be $20 US dollars, and you can see what that turns to in other countries. I personally find it's better to see what the local currency is and see what that is in dollars. I do try and recommend knowing roughly what 20 US dollars is going to look like for you, depending where you are. That way, if you're about to buy something, $20 is kind of that cutoff when you really need to debate, is it worth buying? So if you know what that looks like in the local currency, you have an easier time saying, oh yeah, I'll buy it for that, or say, wait, how much more is that actually? Some places are easier than others. The euro right now is pretty close to the US dollar, so that's not too bad. But you can see down towards the bottom, the Hungarian forint, that gets very confusing very quickly. So roughly $22 is roughly 6,275. That kind of math is a little tricky to do ahead of time. So the way it works is it does upload and connect to the current transaction rates. What this means is it needs a connection for the up-to-date fee. But it will also store the last time you connected. So if you connect to it in the morning at your hotel with Wi-Fi, it'll get a rate right then. You can close it. 5 hours later when you're at a market, double checking what it is you're haggling the price at, you can just open it and it'll do the transfer at the rate you looked at that morning. More than likely that is the same rate. If it's not, if things have changed a lot, we have much bigger problems than that happening. But that one-time connection is probably good enough for the whole week. But otherwise, you can connect it every morning just to make sure you have the up-to-date or as close as you can for the transaction rates. World Clock comes with Apple products. Android, there's a lot of free versions to download, but I highly recommend having one of them because if you are math impaired like myself, sometimes it's nice to let the machine tell you that when you're calling home, it is not 2 a.m. You can really make some enemies very quickly if you're calling them at awful hours. So it's easy to use, just put in a few places of anywhere you might be calling, whether it's before your trip or after your trip, and just a nice way to make sure you're not, again, waking anyone up and them not talking to you when you come home. And Seat Guru I like to bring up, their website is actually a little bit easier to use, but they do have the app in case you don't have access to a computer. It does have a flight tracker is another reason why I bring it up. It does need a connection for that to work, but it's a nice two-in-one. There's a million flight tracker apps out there. They all do basically the same thing. Seat Guru has that with one other feature. People leave reviews on the seats they had for a flight. So this means if somebody had a seat that did not recline, if they're nice enough to leave a warning about that, that's great. If you're booking your flight well in advance, it's worth going on to Seat Guru, and again, I usually do the website, but go on to Seat Guru and see the seat you were thinking of booking, have there been any negative comments? Did the electronics work? Did the seat recline? Was it too close to the restroom? If your trip is coming up very soon and you haven't picked your seat and you only have 1 or 2 options left anyways, do not use Seat Guru. You might regret it when you see all the negative information about the 1 or 2 seats that are left. So again, well in advance, it's great to get your options. If you don't have a lot of options, just go with what's left and hope for the best. Now with ebooks, there are a lot of different versions, and you can get a lot of information packed into one little device with the ebooks, with the connection to internet. I tend to recommend going to the Kindle store because Kindle has a nice option being through Amazon. They have an app for every type of device. You can download the Kindle app for free on any Apple product, iPad or iPhone, any Android. You can use it on a computer in a lot of cases, and you can use it on a traditional Kindle reader with the e-ink. Guidebooks look pretty good, especially on the screens like a tablet would have, an iPad. I will say on the e-ink traditional Kindle type readers, maps don't translate very well. They're not made to kind of be displayed quite the same way, but the text is the same. The other warning I like to give, the one big con, is guidebooks aren't written like novels. They're not written to be read from A to B. You jump around a lot in it. You'll see a lot. For more information, turn to page 72. With ebooks, it's a lot harder to do that, in my opinion. But if you're going to 6 different countries and need a guidebook for each one, that little bit of a hassle of jumping around might be worth the weight you are saving by having 6 books just loaded in your tablet. So just think about where you're going. If I was just doing a solo trip to France, I'd be happier just having the France guidebook because it's easier to go back and forth. But if I'm doing a huge trip with, again, 6 countries, I would strongly debate loading up on the ebook versions. You can also bookmark pages ahead of time to make it a little bit easier. If you know what page your hotel's on, bookmark it. If you know the sites you're planning to visit, bookmark them ahead of time, and that'll make it easier to jump around to the specific things you've bookmarked. Just a few more things to make sure you're prepared for before you go. The tablets can make great camera accessories, especially for backing up or uploading your photos. I know a lot of people take photos with their phones now. I'm a little guilty of that sometimes too. But I do like to take a point and shoot camera now and then too. I have a nice little Canon one. I think it takes great photos. But in doing that, sometimes I want to share it quickly too with people on Facebook or email. So Apple does sell an accessory that you can connect an SD card, which is the camera memory card. You can connect it to the iPad and upload your photos. Some of the Android devices automatically come with one of these readers, meaning just take it out of the camera and put it right into the Android. But what I tend to do actually is I'll upload all the photos I've just taken. It's going to take a good amount of room on my tablet. But then when I have a quiet moment, maybe in the hotel, maybe a train ride, a bus ride, I'll start going through my photos. I will delete any that are less than impressive, but only keep the ones that I really like. The ones I want to make sure are doubly backed up. And then those photos I really did like, I might also back up again on Dropbox or upload to Facebook so that they're somewhere else too. Multiple backup options. So that's where the tablets come in really handy for a bigger screen to look at. And the tablets are also nice for when you're in your hotel room. If you want to send emails, I think it's easier to type them out there. If you want to watch anything, not saying you should be in your hotel room watching movies, but every now and then you might want to have a quiet night. Netflix has expanded to almost every country now, so you get some new things on that. But again, go out and explore the city. But again, I know you might get tired every now and then. And also with the tablet, it's a little heavier. And I personally don't like to go out and about with my tablet. It truly is my hotel option. If I've been asked many times if you were to take one or the other, which would you take? I would say a smartphone does a bit more because it does everything the tablet does, but it fits in your pocket or a bag very easily. And so it's a little bit easier to carry around, lighter. But I do like having both again for when I want to just have a bigger screen for use in the hotel rooms. Sometimes trains and buses too. Everything we've talked about is dual voltage. That means you do not need a converter. Luckily for everyone traveling, big companies that sell high-tech electronic devices, they found it's easier and cheaper for them to make the device work everywhere, and all they have to do is change the little metal plug that goes into a wall. What that means to you is you will need an adapter, however. Adapters change the end of your plug to fit the country you're traveling. So that one you see with the 2 round prongs, that is continental Europe. That's pretty much all of Europe. The other one you see there with the 3 more square prongs, that's the British-Irish plug. And that's just because the British had to be different. It's just what they do. But otherwise, your iPad, your Samsung tablets, your iPhones, all you need is this and your current US charging cable that you use right now. You can put these adapters right on the end of that, plug it right into the wall, and your phone or your tablet will charge just fine. These shouldn't cost you much if you get them before you go. You can find them for $1 at ricksteves.com, or you can wait till you're there, but then they get closer to 5 or 10 euros for an adapter. So stock up on them, buy a few. You can become people's friends. If you hear people asking for one in a hotel lobby, you can say, oh, I have a couple extra. So you can really save the day with that. The other thing I recommend, set up your device's password or the Android pass design sort of thing they've set up. Do one of those just to make it so people can't access your phone too easily. Make it that only you can just jump right in there. I know it's so easy not to have it secure before you go, but just do it. It'll give you peace of mind. Apple users, there's a thing called Find My Phone. Really set up that ahead of time too. It's a great feature that if you do lose your phone or it's stolen, if they keep it on, you might have a chance to see where it is. Most thieves, unfortunately, if they do take your phone, will turn it off. But if you want peace of mind, you can tell through Find My Phone, tell the network to erase everything on your phone the second it senses a connection, whether it's Wi-Fi or data. Basically meaning the next time it's turned on, it's going to wipe the memory off your phone. Your phone's probably gone forever, unfortunately, but that important information on it is gone. So it's nice to just have that set up. Android, you can double check if there's any apps that do quite the same thing. I was not having a lot of luck earlier, but it'll just make it a little bit easier. It is unfortunate if your phone or your tablet's stolen while traveling, but it's not like your passport or your credit cards, which really can just end the trip right there. Just remember, if you are prepared for some of those older travel skills, you can survive if this does happen. But for the most part, try and keep your phone a little more secure. If you have a bag that has a zipper that's covered by a flap, keep it in there more times. It's harder for a hand to get there. I do carry my phone in my front pocket, but if there's crowds or I'm on a metro, my hand goes right there too, just for extra protection. But the pickpockets in Europe are very good, unfortunately. You don't have to worry about mugging or anything like that, but they do want to get things that they can make money off of. Credit cards, cash especially. Phones are actually a little bit lower on the spectrum, but they'll take them if it's an easy target. Thank you for coming in today. Hopefully everyone's ready. Again, practice with your apps right now at home before you go, and have a safe and great trip.